Salutations Rangers, General Bradley 101 back at you again with some more lore. And today's video, boys and girls, we were talking about the Primarchs again. Yes indeedy, the very angsty, angry and complicated sons of Mr. Big Golden Daddy E himself. And today we're taking a look at the goodest boys, who many people believe is the worst boys in fact. Yes indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the Primarch of the 6th Legion, Lord Puppy himself, Leman Russ. But more specifically, how GW can fix this poor boy. And no, this does not involve him going to a vet. So, buckle up, strap on in, and let's get cracking on with today's video. So, before we can answer the question, how does GW fix Leman Russ, we need to answer the question, does Leman Russ need to be fixed? Yes he does. Not only because he is indeed a goddamn dirty dog, but more specifically, there is a lot of things that people do not like about Mr. Leman Russ. Now, this isn't a case of they don't like it from a characterization standpoint. There is just a lot of hate for Russ and the Wolves, period. So much so that many people are starting to think that they may be in fact becoming the new Ultramarines, in regards to just the amount of hate that they get. But the question is, why? Well, you see, there's one reason, and that's because every goddamn thing is named Wolf. Wolf this, wolf that, wolf. I counted it, 17 of their units, or 16 or ever many, have some abbreviation of wolf in the name, and it's like, why? Stop making them dumb. They're supposed to be Vikings, but instead they just become stupid wolf lords. And it's annoying, because it's like wolf everything. You have so much to draw upon from history, and they're just like wolf. But GW's horrible naming conventions aside, and my absolute ire at their disrespect of history, there is a reason in particular why people do not like Mr. Russ. And the general consensus is that they just don't like how he seems to get away with things. To the vast majority of Russ haters, they despise Leman Russ because he just seems to always get away with stuff scot-free. A big point in the heresy is that a lot of Primarchs have their flaws, and these flaws then get taken advantage of and then recompensed therein. The whole point is, you got a problem, you don't address it, it'll come back to bite you in the ass. But with Leman Russ, that seems to be lessened. It appears that for one reason or another, Leman Russ always seems to escape his various different aspects of tragedy. He always escapes the comeuppance. He always escapes the recompense. There is no lasting damage for what happens to him. Nothing really major, nothing really life-changing. He just happens to shrug, it's okay, and then crack on with his day. And that's that. And this has really rubbed people the wrong way when you consider that Leman Russ is one of the most active Primarchs in the heresy, and he's done a lot of dumb shit. And the fact of the matter is that no one does anything or says anything or tells him anything, and that he gets away scot-free, it drives people up the wall. Also, the fact of the matter that he is arrogant, childish, and just, kind of an asshole and a dumbass at times, really doesn't help his argument. He definitely doesn't strike you as the sympathetic type. That then comes into the second reason why people really don't like Leman Russ. He's just not likable. He's loud. He's arrogant. He's foolhardy. He just comes off as this barbaric idiot. And yes, to be fair, Leman Russ is indeed smarter than he lets on, and he has more theory and crafting than anything in between. But that all gets lost. Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, when it matters the most, when the writing is on the wall, when push comes to shove, Leman Russ acts like an idiot. And the fact of the matter that you have this dude, who is supposed to be one of the great warriors of the Emperor. He's supposed to be a dude bro, but he just ends up coming off as this asshole, and the fact that he doesn't get any recompense or any comeuppance of it, there's a reason why people end up hating him. And of course, this translates into his legion. But looking into it, this is half true, because there are plenty of cases throughout the entirety of the heresy where Leman Russ does indeed get humbled for one reason or another. And to be fair to the puppy, he takes it relatively okay. Throughout the entirety of the heresy, he and his sons do indeed suffer. He's caught out by the Alpha Legion, he then has to talk to the Lion, and he has to eat humble pie at pretty much every other turn. But then, if that is indeed the case, why don't people seem to reference that? Well, two reasons. One, the comeuppance isn't exactly catastrophic. It's a minor setback here and there, but I feel like people really want Leman to get a solid punch in the nuts. Something like a Calth type situation, or something like the betrayal of the Fallen with Luther. They really want something to impact the Legion, and that didn't happen ultimately. So whilst Leman may have indeed gotten some comeuppance, people think that he got off light. Now, whether or not that's the actual case, that's a different story, but the second reason, and the main issue, is that people are so turned off by Leman's story, by his character, and by the Legion as a whole, that what they end up doing is that they just don't get to that good part. They're so abrasive towards Leman and his nature that they don't even end up getting to dessert. Starter was rubbish. Why even bother with the main course, let alone dessert? And that's why we have people where they are. And it's a shame because GW tried to do something with Leman Russ. They tried to make him the jerk older brother who, he's an asshole, he's goofy, but at the same time he's happy, he's go-lucky, you love him, you want to like him. But they dropped the ball. They tried to make him that archetype. Yet the problem is, with that specific archetype, when push comes to shove, he stands firm. But when Leman Russ comes to shove, he does stand firm, but he does a lot of dumb decisions. So that archetype then becomes moot. Because the whole point of that archetype is that they need to be reliable. Leman Russ is not reliable, at least according to the Van's point of view. But now that we've established that, yeah, the puppy boy needs some love, let's talk about how can GW fix him. And the only way to really fix him is, of course, to bring him back and give him a new character introduction. Now, I am aware that a lot of people are not too keen about the Primarchs coming back, but I want them to come back and I like them, so I'm gonna roll with it. But the way that it would work is that Leman Russ would have to emerge from the warp. Let's say a chaotic warp storm spit him out, or one thing led to another, but he gets out of the warp. And he's a little different. Mainly, he's much more wiser, much more older, much more rugged. And he's missing an eye. Now, if you guys are a fan of Nordic mythology, you know exactly where I'm going with this. Thor has become Woden. Basically, you give Russ what everyone has been wanting him to have ever since they first read about him in the Heresy. Concrete, solid character development. But not just character development in the superficial sense, actual, real, proper, hard-hitting stuff. Because as I mentioned before, what people don't like about Leman Russ is that they feel that whatever he has been done to him isn't drastic enough. So, we need to strike a balance between giving him a good solid character change, but at the same time not turning him into basically a new character. And considering the implications of Thor turning into Woden, I think it'd be very fitting for the young, brash, hot-headed Thor to slowly become transformed into the slow, methodical, wise Woden, but after suffering a catastrophe. In his 10,000 years in the warp, or however many years it actually ends up being, Leman Russ ends up fighting X, Y, and Z. He goes through a bunch of stuff, but the first company that accompanied him, they sadly didn't come back. Throughout all of his trials and tribulations in a great battle, Leman Russ would not only lose his eye, but he'd also lose all of his sons. And it would be because of him, because of his foolhardy nature, because of some mistake that he particularly made. His sons would die trying to save him, and they would succeed, but as his final Huskarl died, it would be Leman's hands that were stained with his blood. Thus, Leman Russ would continue to wander the warp, bearing the shame of it all, having led his sons into slaughter and being responsible for their death. There would be no rejoicing in the mead halls of Fenris. There would be no glory, no honor, for his sons would lay, their bodies not even given the right of burial, in some twisted hellscape of a bygone wretched world. That would be the fate of his sons, and that would be a fate that Leman Russ and no one else could be blamed to give them. This event would change Leman drastically. He would essentially realize that throughout the entirety of his life, a lot of the various good things that he thought he was doing was just him being rash, being upset, and him just acting like an asshole. He would then slowly begin to understand that just because he is smart, doesn't mean he will always act smart. He will also come to realize and have a bit of a reconnection with Magnus the Red. Leman and Magnus are actually kind of much alike. They're both arrogant, they both love their sons, they both want the best for them, and they both believe that they know what's the best thing to do. And, as it is but common, if you're really close to somebody, you either become best friends or worst enemies. And considering how Leman lost an eye in this scenario, it kinda makes sense that he would remind himself of the Crimson King more and more. Now, I'm not saying he loves him exactly, but he started recognizing that, maybe he should have been a bit easier on the big giant red nerd. And thus, the All-Father would return, and he would return changed, matured. It's very much so what happened with the Lion, and I would actually love to see the interaction between the Lion as well as Russ. Both of them once hot-headed idiots who often let their passions overcome their reason, now mature, dignified and stalwart, recognizing the sins of their past and trying everything in their path to right it. It'd be very, very interesting to see Leman Russ act like that. But then that begs the question, what would his storyline be in 40k? Of course, probably like Bobby G as well as the Lion, he'd probably try and restore his legion to some form of coherency. He'd definitely reunite with his sons and reestablish his place as the Wolf King. But whereas Bobby G is trying to get the Imperium back together again, make sure the taxes are taxing and that people don't throw their lives away needlessly in the name of the God Emperor, who's not actually a god but might be a god but didn't want to be. Or the Lion who's pulled up, whipped out his big black sword and is going ham on everyone and everything and preparing to raid the warp. Maybe, not really, but goddammit would that be fun. I could imagine Leman Russ deciding to take a step back. He's always been the glory-hungering wolf. That's always been his shtick. To go forth and to fight, and that's that. But in this new era, he may actually take a step back. Something that people don't give the Space Wolves enough credit is that they're a very human legion. They love people, they love their kin, and they love normal humans. They're very respectful towards them. In fact, they're pretty close to the Salamanders in that regard and how well they treat normal human beings. So I can imagine Leman Russ taking his legion of the forefront, the executioners, the wrath of the Emperor, and instead turning them into the Emperor's guard dogs, his wardens, his keepers of his Imperium, the bastion against the darkness. Whereas you have Guilliman trying to reorganize everything, making sure that the Imperium is actually functioning the way it's supposed to and not being bogged down by religious fervor or stupid bureaucracy. You have the Lion who's out and about actually fighting, establishing footholds and outposts and pushing the borders and pushing back the enemies. You could then have Leman Russ. He'll take up the task of ensuring that both the Lion and Guilliman are protected. His wolves would go from planet to planet, putting out fires, establishing garrisons, fortifying places, but more than that, Russ would also share his knowledge. A big point in Scandinavian mythology is that Odin is the god of tactics and wisdom, but he had to earn that wisdom, hence how he lost the eye. So I could see Russ having learned a bunch of stuff throughout the warp, a bunch of hidden knowledge. So I could imagine him taking time to actually look into this stuff, ordering his boys, ordering parts of the Imperium to actually try and recreate a bit of this lost technology. Not only would Leman be the warden of the Imperium, he would actively try and reclaim what was lost. During the day, he would prevent the enemies from burning the house, and at night, he would teach the people how to read. It's a very drastic change to what Leman was in 30k, and I think it would really give his character a very nice rounded edge. He understands that there are other people doing the fighting, so he needs to do what else needs to be done. He needs to be the one developing areas, protecting them, but also sharing the knowledge. Odin was the god of wisdom, and it is very popular in Scandinavian and Nordic mythologies for older warriors to be fountains of wisdom. And it's also quite fitting. Magnus was supposed to be the Lord of Wisdom. He was supposed to be the Imperium's lawkeeper. He was supposed to be the smartest of the Primarchs. That was his job. Russ, of course, killed Magnus, or got him as dead as he could be. Thus, the position of Lawmaster was abandoned, destroyed quite literally in the fires of Prospero. It'd be very poetic or ironic, depending on how optimistic you want to be, if Leman Russ, the same man who destroyed the lawkeeper, ended up becoming the new lawkeeper. He would promote the wisdom which he so loved. He would seek it and he would share it with his people. In the same vein, he would defend them from those who sought to destroy it. Leman Russ is not really seen as a Primarch of culture, even though the Space Wolves and Fenris have such a rich culture to them. It's quite sad that it's often not really explored that much by GW because, as I said, wolf, wolf, wolf. But the fact of the matter is, if Leman wanted to, he could change the culture of the Imperium. Not much, mind you, but it would be a very cool thing. It really would, to see Leman Russ sitting with a bunch of scholars and warriors. He's not dressed in fancy robes, he's simply wearing his pelt, his eye patch, and sitting nursing a cup of mead. And he's telling them about what he saw in the warp. He's explaining to them the truth and the reality and the wisdom of it all. And like a wise old king from ages past, he explains it to them in calmness and sincerity. The old rage of the young warrior has been washed away, replaced by the calming, soothing wisdom of an old god king. And personally, I love that idea for Mr. Leman Russ. I think that it's a very fitting conclusion to his character, and I think that should it go. But for those Space Wolf fans who really do love the wolves, don't worry. They're still going to be your wolf boys. As you can imagine, the Inquisition and the Ecclesiarchy are not going to be too happy with Mr. Puppy Lord over here spreading all the good news, so they'll try and stop him. But Leman doesn't give a fuck. He may be wise, he may be mature, but he's still the Wolf King, and his fangs have not gotten dull. So too with the Space Wolves. They'll still fuck around with anyone who tries to fuck with them, they'll still protect people, and they'll do what is right, and they still don't give a fuck. But it's a balance in that they don't give a fuck, but they're not stupid. They'll fight you, but they're not going to charge you right now with all your boys. But they'll come back another day, and they'll make sure that you stop your nonsense. But the wisdom of Warden must be heard. And as the Primarch changes, so too will his legion. Whilst we haven't really seen anything with Guilliman or the Lion with the Ultramarines and the Dark Angels just yet, the stories are still relatively new, I can imagine that the wolves too would be changed. The wolves have their own problem as is, but we'll cover that in a different video. But they're getting very animalistic, very bestial, very savage. The whole point of the original Legion was that they were wolves. They were ferocious and savage, but they were also cunning and intelligent. A lot of this was supposed to be a ploy, to fool people into underestimating them, but without the Primarch to hold them in check, the ploy soon became reality. So I can imagine Leman coming back and quite literally bitch slapping his sons until they come right, cause he's still the Wolf King, and he don't take no shit. But in the same vein, he would teach his sons, less of the Berserker, more of the old Huskarl, the old Varangian veteran who served, the wise Norseman. And I feel like it'd be a very fitting change for the Space Wolves as well. Their character as well would change. It's still the same person, but it's just a matured version. And personally, I think that would make everybody, including Space Wolf fans, quite happy. We saw the reception with the Lion and how he's portrayed, and everyone agrees it's a fantastic improvement of his character, and it fixes a lot of what was wrong in 30k. But he's still the Lion, but just a better version of him. And I think that Leman Russ would indeed fit that bill quite well. Not only would his character be improved and actually given a solid resolution, he would fit in the concept of Warhammer 40k. He would fit in the Imperium and he'd be helpful. He'd be a whole new angle in which that the Space Marines could explore, and it'd be very fitting with him drawing parallels to Magnus. I just think there's a bunch of amazing stories that are waiting to be had here, and I truly believe that this is the best way for GW to take Leman's story. And in my opinion, it is the best, if only way, to truly fix his character, and turn him from someone who people absolutely hate because of his stupidity into a compelling character who has shown a great deal of growth. For the wolf time will come, and the world shall sunder, and all wrath and ruin shall descend upon it. But before the ruin of Jormungandr can touch the wolves of Fenris and the realm of the Allfather, he must first conquer Thor, for Thor has grown. Thor has now become the new king. But there's no more Thor, there is only Woden, and as Woden guards, none may pass. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know down below, what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with most of the community on why they hate Leman Russ? Do you think that it's a good reason to hate him? Do you think that people just hate him for the sake of hating him? Do you think it's a problem with the writing? And do you think he just needs to be flushed out a little bit more, even in 30k? And what do you guys think about my thoughts on how to improve him into 40k? Personally, I love the idea of it. I said a lot in the video, but I really think that this is a good way to take Leman Russ. It will just fix so many of his problems and not completely remove them or retcon them, but instead give them a logical conclusion. And I think that's the best way to finish off his character. But let me know down below, Space Wolf fans especially, did I do King Puppy proud? But I want to thank you guys also very much for watching, and even a more special thank you to my members! Big shout out to a brand new member, Hattori's Curse, who joined at the private tier. Wait, Cuz? Sounds like a Night Lord. Alright, Buster, you get in. But I'm watching you, this is a Salamander channel, yeah? Shout out to my Lieutenant tier members, Mr. Eddie V3 and Miss Major of the Void. Shout out to my Sergeant tier members, Mr. Damiak, Mr. Andy McGee, Mr. Warsmith.Fireheart, and Mr. Corns Butcher. Shout out to my Corporal tier members, Mr. Bowen. And finally, but certainly not least, big shout out to my privateer members, Mr. Thomas Rose Lawns, Mr. Ivan_SVW, and Mr. Michael Hayada. Thank you all also very much from the bottom of my heart. It means the absolute world to me that you guys do this. As I said, I'm trying to make this my full-time vocation. I'm trying to reach 100k subs by the end of the year, so the more members I get, the more time and effort I can put into this, and it makes daily uploads worth it. So thank you all so very much, sincerely. So if you want to join these awesome peeps, sign up with a membership, so you get early access to these videos, behind the scenes stuff ahead in making the channel, as well as a bunch of other awesome benefits. And if you sign with the Captain tier, you get one special video request on literally any topic for any series whatsoever. But remember, this will always be free. And you watching will be simply more than enough for me. And I would love you just the same whether you give me a dollar or not. Yes, I will. But ladies and gentlemen, I've been the General Bradley 101. You've been beautiful, awesome, and amazing people. Make sure to stay loyal out there, boys and gals. And I will catch y'all next time. Dismiss, Rangers! Can't wait to get that random Thousand Suns fan to be like, Leman Russ just fucking die. Yeah, buddy, and Magnus did nothing wrong.